wind, water. This is the Elemental Educator. And now your host, Tyler Como.
Alchemists, welcome to another episode of the Elemental Educator Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, and thank you so much for joining our community for another incredible connection. If you're here for the first time, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to a place where we redefine leadership and challenge the status quo. Take a minute before continuing the episode to subscribe to our YouTube at Elemental_Educator, where we upload all of our video episodes and additional leadership content meant for anyone looking to grow. For those returning alchemists, take some time to expand our community and share this platform with one other person today. I'm so thankful for being better together. Now get ready to let the alchemy of education ignite your passion for learning. Today, we are joined by Jess. Jess is a lottery winner, world famous keynote speaker, singer, songwriter, interpretive dancer, and she put in her notes that I could just make up whatever intro I wanted. Jess is an incredible person. We are doing our doctorate together. So class of 2026, here we go. Jess is currently a school principal, and we will unpack. I've been told so many times, by the way, side tangent in the intro, that I say unpack a lot, but we're going to unpack what Jess does and exactly where she is going with it. Welcome to the Elemental Educator Podcast, Jess. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Tyler. I'm excited to be here. And I did say you could say anything. So that was a pretty interesting intro, I gotta say.
The only other time I've heard that somebody could say anything they wanted is it was a story from actually another guest on the show. And they said the person could make up whatever they wanted. And they said like Grammy Award winner, 5-star actor. And they had to go out on stage in front of people. And they actually had to be like, that's not me. I told this person to make everything up.
All lies.
So I wanted to run with it. I should have went deeper into it and told the audience it wasn't real. But I want to start, Jess, with the big question first, which is, how did you get to where you are now?
As a school principal or a big giant mess?
Everything. Not a big time mess, but let's talk about, you can go career, you can go life. How did we get there?
Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting. I was a teacher right before COVID, and I was looking to leave work so that I could go off and be a yoga teacher around the world, because I am a yoga teacher and I have friends around the world who are also yoga teachers. So that was the plan. And I had decided I was leaving work. Then all of a sudden, unexpectedly found out I was pregnant, and that kind of changed everything. So then I said, okay, I guess I'm staying here, and now I'm going to go back to teaching. And then like right around the time it was almost COVID, it was, I think, 2019, I had gone on a mat leave, and the principal at the time from the school that I was at really wanted me to come back to his school and to be a vice principal. And I wasn't really interested in admin, but he moved some pieces and said, he made it really interesting for me. So I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then a few months into me being a VP, he left and decided he was going to do something else and urged me to be a principal. And I did not want it, didn't want to be a principal, didn't even want to be a VP. And, but it was COVID now. And I felt like a sense of obligation to our school, to our staff, that we were going through something. I didn't want to, jump ship. And so I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then felt totally unprepared for that big jump. And then I thought, okay, I'll do a master's, which is where I met you. And then I've still been here. I've been in multiple roles, as a VP, principal, assistant superintendent. And now we're doing the doctorate. So that's how I got here.
What drives you and what drove you to get into education? What drove you to do your master's and your doctorate?
Actually, I was in law school and did not enjoy it. I found that a lot of the cases we were learning about irritated me, and I just did not feel that it was my place. But maybe a summer or two before that, I'd been working at a playground, and there were some preteens there. It was kind of a rougher playground, and so they were real sassy kids. And, I remember that being a highlight that just working with those sassy kids. And I remember thinking, you know what? I never wanted to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. And now suddenly, I was in law school, not enjoying it. And I said, you know what? Maybe I would enjoy education. Maybe I would enjoy working with teenagers. And so then I switched and and that's what I did. I went in to be a teacher for middle years and high school, and I never regretted a day. I always thought it was such a good job. I really enjoy kids. And so, I never regretted it. I always loved that choice.
And it's so subtle, but this has been something you've said before that I've noticed, and I'm going to bring it up now. When you love your job, you get to say something along the lines of, I get to go to work today, or I get to go to work tomorrow. And there's a very intentional shift between I have to go to work today and tomorrow versus get to. And I have a feeling if you chose the law route, you would have found more days of I have to go to work today. And in the position you're in now, it was I get to go to work. Now, it's rooted in something around helping and service with kids, which is a very strong value to have. And it actually brings us up to our first segment on grounded moments, Jess.
3, 2, 1.
Rooted in wisdom, driven by purpose. Welcome to Grounded Moments. And to build some momentum here, Jess, we are going to start with a game. So the game today is principles or preferences. And get ready. I am going to give, it's an easy game. Well, I say easy, but I had to promise the first guest that we would run, if I wouldn't clip a segment on this, we have to play it in its entirety so people know. The idea here is you have to tell me whether or not a statement I give you is a core principle, which means it's something that you're planning and intend to live by forever till the end of it. Or if it's just a personal preference. And if it's just a personal preference, that means that, well, obviously it's not something that everybody has to take on. So it's just strictly instincts here. There's no room for explanations. It's core principle or personal preference. You ready to play?
Yep.
All right. And it's rapid fire here. So just right off the top of your head, you should never schedule meetings on Mondays.
Core principle.
People should always reply to emails within 24 hours.
Preference.
You should always shake hands when meeting someone professionally.
Core principle.
Everyone should have a mentor, no matter their career level.
Ooh, I'm going to have to say preference.
Your out-of-office email should always include a joke.
Preference.
Casual dress codes should be the default in a workplace.
Preference.
Giving someone feedback over text is never a good idea.
Core principle.
There's no excuse for being late to a Zoom call.
Core principle.
Everyone should take a real lunch break, no working through it.
Preference.
There we go. So quick little game. I like to play this game. It's new to the show. I play it because we start to get into the idea of what a value is and what people stand for there and what they believe in a fun little way. And we were able to establish some non-negotiables for you as well. So thanks for playing, Jess. And to build some, I guess, additional momentum into the segment of this, I want to unpack a quote that you shared with me earlier through the Google form that we filled out, which was, "Do not love leisure. Waste not a minute, be bold, realize the truth here and now." So I'm hoping you can share where you got this quote from and why you chose it for the show today.
Thanks. I like that quote because it is from Swami Shivananda, and he is the founder of the yoga school that I trained in, Shivananda Yoga, which is Hatha Yoga. He was a pretty prolific writer, and he always talked about yoga and realizing the self, which is self-realization, enlightenment, nirvana, all those concepts that you're kind of familiar with, more Eastern sort of yoga or religion stuff. But when he's talking about that quote, it really strikes me just about the immediacy of our life, that we don't have a lot of time. And, even if you're blessed with 100 years, that's not a lot of time. Like, I'm almost 46 and I feel it. I feel that, I could be, if I'm blessed, I could be halfway done my life, which means that I don't have a lot of time left if there's, things that I have for goals. And I mean, the quote itself is actually a lot more spiritual because it does, mean that you need to be working towards enlightenment or self-realization. But for me, just the impact that it has on me to move my butt every day towards the things that matter. I think that's why I really like that quote.
And you can never buy time, right? You can never make up for lost time. And there's something to be said about taking advantage of the time that we have. Jess, how does this quote, this message show up for you in your workflow?
Well, if anything, exactly like what you were asking me to answer earlier, which I realized I didn't really answer. I kind of veered off topic and went on a tangent just about like those driving motivators in life. I think for me, in the workplace, that quote is very significant because I don't have a lot of time even at work. And so I have to prioritize things. I have to, not waste a minute. I have to push through and get as much done as I can in the tiny window of time that I have, which is why when you did the principles and preferences, I wish I had 30 minutes for a lunch break. I don't, I can't even tell you how often, like I don't even eat lunch some days, which is so unhealthy. Sometimes I'm like just so starving by like 2:30 and somebody's in my office and I say, I'm sorry, I have to eat in front of you. And they're usually okay. I always offer my lunch too, so that I'm not being rude, but that's the reality, that I just have to, I don't have a minute to waste, not in my job.
And I didn't even realize it myself until I had a staff member say, do you even eat? Because they never see us eat because we're busy in that lunchtime. We're either taking on a supervisory role, we're catching up with a phone call, we're finishing an email, because that's the time when teachers are off. So I can kind of relax from needing to support teachers in that moment with kids and start to do some of the other admin tasks that I have to do as well. Yeah. Now, taking this message, Jess, have you heard of an elevator pitch before?
Oh, no.
So right on. Yeah, well, this is where we're going. You have an audience listening right now that needs your 20 to 30 second motivational speech here on why this message you're trying to send, why this quote you brought today is so important. And so in 20 to 30 seconds, I want you to ignite some passion behind this for our audience.
Okay, 20 to 30 seconds. I would say that you don't have a minute to waste. Your life is short. We're going to blink and be 6 feet under. So whatever it is that you're waiting to do, you need to do it. Don't waste another minute. Do it now or do it yesterday. There you go.
Do it yesterday. Hey, that was great. And along the way, in trying to do things, we get met with a lot of adversity, which actually brings us up to the air element, our next segment on Headwinds and Tailwinds. Through storms and surges, discover the lessons from Headwinds and Tailwinds, where we focus on the challenges that test us and the forces that help us move forward. And you betcha, Jess, we are playing another game. This one is not rapid fire. This game is called Make It Worse. And so I'm going to give you a bad situation, and your job is to take it to the next level and simply make the situation worse.
Okay.
Now, our audience is aspiring leaders, regular everyday people. And so let's keep it PG as we give some answers here. Are you ready to play?
My boss might be watching this.
Exactly. Mine too, right? So are you ready?
Yep, let's go.
All right. You forgot someone's name right after they introduced themselves to you.
Then I would call them Betty or Joe.
Betty or Joe. All right. At least you weren't responsible for then reintroducing them, right? Like that. Oh man, that could get bad. You try to make a joke in a meeting and it gets taken seriously.
Shall I give you the number to HR?
All right. Let's go with, you start an email with hi, and then you put in like it's a template. So then it has like the brackets where it says put your name here, and you accidentally send it without intentionally putting your name in.
Follow up with, my name is Jess.
Did we make it worse, Jess? I don't know. By the way, my name is Jess. Oh boy. Okay. Don't worry, Jess. There's 2 more games to play as we keep going. Let's. You
need to tell me about the games.
You're doing great. I did not tell you about the games that was not in here. But first, let's set the stage as we talk about adversity. So we faced some definite adversity playing these games together here. But can you share a time when you faced significant adversity, either in the workplace or outside of the workplace?
And when you say adversity, can you define it? How do you mean?
Yeah, like a hardship, or when we think of headwinds and tailwinds push you forward and a headwind slows you down. So maybe moments that felt like they were heavy, they were load bearing, they were hardships.
At work?
Yeah. Or not. Up to you.
Okay. I would say becoming a principal, really. Like, to me, that felt like adversity hardcore because it was COVID and I had zero experience as a principal. I had no mentors, and suddenly, I had to steer the ship. I didn't even know how to steer a ship, and it was COVID, so nothing was happening the way you expected it might, and you had to learn how to make up stuff on the fly. And I think that was super challenging. Honestly, I don't know why I'm still here. I think I'm still traumatized from that year.
Oh boy. Just in our cohort and some of the conversations we've had, you're in a very difficult position and you have a very, very challenging job, and every day is full of surprises for you, full of challenges for you. And that's incredibly difficult to navigate. But at what point was there a turning point for you where things started to shift, where you went, oh my God, I don't know how to steer this ship, to, all right, I can start to take a little bit of control and be confident in these decisions?
I think it was probably, do you mean in like my current job or when I first started?
Yeah, or you talked about when you first started out, maybe the moment where in leadership you started to realize that you had some potential that was worth sharing.
Well, I think it was when in my first principalship, I really started to see some of the change that we wanted to initiate, that we had set up as a staff, and people had some buy-in. And so they were starting to take ownership of the plans, and it was starting to happen all around me. And I was able to start seeing these amazing changes happen. And I realized that myself and my VP were maybe catalysts in that change, but people were really doing the work themselves. And just as a collective, it was really kind of amazing to watch. And that's where I thought, you know what? I think we're onto something.
And everyone needs an anchor to stay grounded during adversity. And I remember my first even few months in a leadership role, questioning almost everything I was doing. What was your anchor during that time?
You know what? It was probably the master's course that we were doing, because, and it still happens to this day in my doctorate, that every single issue I had, for some reason, I had a class at that moment that required me to do an assignment exactly with that issue. And so, it really helped me to kind of pull myself out of it and to look at everything objectively and to say, okay, this is the issue. Let me see, what kinds of theories are out there. What are my, cohort saying, or classmates, and, what kind of resources could I apply to this? And I was able to work out solutions to a lot of the issues that I had through my coursework. It was, I don't know, like I always think that there was some kind of synchronicity in that,
One of the best ways to overcome adversity is to seek out relatableness of the event with other events that might be happening. And so it makes sense that as you're experiencing an adverse moment, you're relating it to a class, you're relating it to a conversation you had, you're relating it to something else that's happened, because that's how people find solutions, is they start to build on them. Okay, what experiences around me that can help shape how I should respond to this situation, right? And so it's actually quite powerful what you're sharing. And with that, it starts, with that, for people that face their own headwinds, their own adversity, Jess, what's one piece of advice you would give to them to help them keep moving forward?
It's only a moment, and sometimes we get stuck in a moment of difficulty and we feel like it's a life sentence, and it's not. You just have to push through the best that you can, reach out, try and find support and resources, but know also that it will pass. It all will pass, right?
Absolutely. And with things passing usually means that change happens, which brings us to our water element segment on ripples of change. Small shifts, big waves. This is Ripples of Change, where we dive into the power of embracing change and making waves that last. So, Jess, are you ready for another game?
Boy, yep.
This one is a song that we're going to sing together. About change. No, it's
Good.
not. I'm kidding. This is it's called Here's the Trick. And so I'm going to give a statement, much like the last game we played. But instead of making it worse, I actually want you to give advice in this situation here. Okay. What can we do to make things better or address this? Okay. Okay. Let's start with if you want to be more productive without burning out.
Then you need to find work-life balance. You need to find some joy in your life and do some self-care.
This lined up really well, actually. The secret to keeping a great work-life balance is
Finding moments of joy, definitely. Whatever it is that brings you joy, if you pour yourself into that, then you'll become more joyful and you'll bring that back to work. So it won't be as stressful.
look for those little joy snacks, right? Where can we find our joy? And this one relates so much to our Make It Worse game. The best way, Jess, to remember someone's name.
To say it right away and to say it a few times in your conversation.
That's right. Repeating it is so important. Wasn't there a movie? I'm trying to think of the movie where somebody like says it in a really weird way. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Where it would be like, hey, my name's Jess. And they would go, Jess. And then they would remember it.
It was the...
Yeah.
Wait, I know it. She was a bunny. Anna Faris. I can't remember.
Okay.
House bunny or something like house. I can't remember.
Maybe something like that.
I feel like it was
Don't
something
ask me
like
how I
that.
know. Don't ask me how I know. If you are listening and you've made it this far into the show and you know what show we're talking about, please email me, Tyler@elementaleducator.com, and tell me what show I can't remember because I didn't say it in the voice that Anna Faris said it in. So talking about change here, Jess, what is a recent change that you embraced or led?
At work, we have shifted to trauma-informed practices, and I've seen a huge change in the culture of our school as a result of that. So that's been really exciting to see.
And trauma informed, like the traumatic event systems training is probably something that you were part of. Maybe walk me through what that looks like in that shift right now.
Before we did the training, we did this training in June. Our entire staff did it. A lot of our staff were not aware of any kind of trauma-informed practices, and so it would show up when we had conflict with students, conflict in general across the board. People, if you're not aware of somebody's trigger, sometimes you can, inadvertently trigger somebody and make a situation worse. And we had a lot of that last year. And so now that we did the training in June, people had time to reflect on it during the summer. We come back. I've seen a huge change. We don't have those triggers as much anymore. People are a lot more sensitive to students' needs and even to themselves. They're starting to be aware of their own triggers. So that's been really kind of cool to see that happen, to see that shift.
And a lot of it is just raising awareness on we don't actually know what people are going through. We might know from our senses. Usually it's either a visual sense or an auditory sense what people have gone through, but we often don't get that feeling sense, right? That touch sense on what did it actually feel like for somebody to go through something, because and the problem with this is that's where they need their support, right? The physical and the visual, that naturally changes over time, but the feeling when somebody goes through trauma is something that they need that support in, and recognizing that and how to address it is really important. So I'm really glad to hear that your staff is doing this, and implementing change comes down to two key moments, Jess, usually the first step that people take and the final move that makes it stick. It sounds like if this is something that's just started, we're in that opening phase still. So what was the first step that you took with your staff to implement this?
We talked about it during our staff meeting, and actually multiple staff meetings, I got to say, because there were often instances where I had to kind of generically talk about things that people needed to do to change. We did some role plays at a staff meeting once, and then, I had to really kind of convince my bosses that the entire staff really needed this training because I really felt that I was like running around everywhere trying to put out fires all of the time. And I'm no trauma expert or anything, but I've had training and I could recognize these instances where, if everybody had been trained, maybe I wouldn't be running around putting out all these fires, that other people could do it. And so really convincing them that we needed this as our staff, and them finally agreeing to me and then telling the staff, you know what, we need to do this. And that was a tough one because I really like to have a lot of staff buy-in, but people don't know what they don't know. And the reality was, in this instance, a lot of people did not know what I was talking about. They didn't recognize that they needed this training. And so I had to make that call myself. And I had to say, we need to do this. And then we brought in the training, and people, you could see the connections happening. It was a 2-day training that we did, and the amount of feedback, positive feedback that I got from the staff was incredible. And now you could see the light went off in many eyes. And now, continually I hear people making that connection repeatedly, because now they're putting a lot of these theories into practice and really seeing the results of that. So I think, just the fact that the whole culture has shifted, they're starting to really see the results of all of their own work, but that if everybody's doing it, what this does for our school, really.
Fight, flight, or freeze is reference to the reptilian brain from way back when people would have sensory information input into them and decide if it's safe or not safe. And if they thought it was not safe, they would shut down and run away. And that still happens today when we try to implement change. Like the change you're talking about, when we try to implement it, there's a fight, flight, or freeze response on people. Oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm not going to take it on yet. That's a flight response. That's a freeze response of I just want to see what's happening. And after a little bit of time to let it ruminate, let it fester, it keeps coming back for more opinions, back to that brain, where the brain eventually makes a decision that, hey, this is actually showing me that there wasn't a need to flight, there wasn't a need to freeze. I haven't been hurt when this has come up yet. Now we can start to explore it a bit. And now the learning can happen. And so you're starting to see the ownership of your staff. You're starting to see the buy-in. You're bypassing that flight and freeze mechanism. And you're starting to get into a fight mechanism where people are sticking with it and wanting to try it out. Eventually, it will hopefully become an infused mechanism within their culture that just becomes a habit that they push forward. Now, with it though, and you alluded to this a little bit, but change can either bring positive momentum or an unexpected setback. Was there any kind of ripple effect you didn't see coming in trying to bring this out with your team?
That a lot of staff are looking into resources themselves because they're so interested in like the trauma informed practices and maybe seeing the benefits. I really didn't see that people would be so invested that they would like literally invest their own money and time and energy into learning more about it and how to be better at it. And again, it's seen that shift where people are now sharing resources with each other and CCing me. And it's just really kind of cool to see. I really think that when
That's wonderful.
Yeah, when they have that buy-in, they take it on and you can really see it.
There's a sense of ownership, right? Yeah. Jess, people often worry that change won't last. So what's one thing that you're doing to make sure that this change becomes a part of the culture in that building?
I don't know that change means something has to stay the same. I do think that change means we're constantly evolving. And so I think right now we have this trauma-informed practice, and that's what's needed. But I don't know that that's always going to be what's needed. I think if anything, it's going to really highlight the need that maybe we need to invest more in some kind of community partnerships with like wellness and healing, to kind of create some sort of structure that will help our students if that's the case, if that's what's needed. So I see it as more of a catalyst right now, and this is what's needed at this moment. I don't know that it's going to be what's always needed. So I know that's kind of a non-committal answer, but that's what I'm going to go with.
That's okay. But speaking of that building and speaking of catalysts, there is some breaking news coming out from the world of Jess. That is a bold decision and a big decision on where we're heading, which brings us up to the fire element. And we're going to get into the segment of Spark or Burn. Ignite your ideas, face the flames. This is Spark or Burn, where we talk about bold decisions, big risks, and the fires that either spark success or burn lessons into our memory. And Jess, we do have one final game to play today, and this one is called Final Answer. So I'm going to give you a high stakes decision to kind of set the tone, and all you have to do is let me know which thing you would decide to do, and you have to lock that answer in immediately. No explanations, no takebacks. You just got to commit and own it. You ready to play? Would you rather have a 10-hour day work week or a 8-hour day work week?
8 hours.
Okay. Would you rather never check your email again or never have to attend another meeting?
Oh, man. I want to say both.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say...
Welcome to Spark or Burn.
I'll say meeting. I'm sorry. Sorry, boss.
Would you rather be known as the hardest worker or the smartest person in the room?
Hardest worker.
One must go forever. Weekends or paid holidays?
Paid holidays.
Would you rather always be underqualified or always be overqualified for every job you apply for?
Underqualified.
There we go. Those were some big choices. No explanations, no regrets. You locked in your final answers. Jess's boss. More emails. Let's go. More emails. Meetings are great. I love the personal connection. I hope that they intentionally schedule more meetings now because there's so much value to it. But that being said, Jess, this relates very much to what we were talking to before I pressed record, where I'm hoping you can tell us about a time when you are making a bold decision or taking a major risk.
I take a big major risk, and I know you want to talk about it. So
I want to talk about it. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it.
Okay.
So I am going to be leaving my current job as principal because I want to do more conflict coaching in the world. I would love to do this with, teenagers, in schools all over the place. I would love to do this with staff, with lateral violence workshops, or anything to do with conflict resolution, that sort of thing. And I also want to have a podcast, and I'm inspired by you, my friend. So I think I would love
thanks so much.
I would love to do a podcast on uncomfortable spaces. So it could be about conflict. It could be about grief and healing, anything that makes us uncomfortable. I would love to be talking about that stuff.
I'm going to circle back to a more meaningful question than this one, but this is just an idea I had. If you choose to do a video podcast on uncomfortable spaces, I really hope that every time you record, you're in some kind of uncomfortable space. That would just make it so much better. Maybe you're like at the top of the tallest building for one, or you're in the smallest, room that you could be in. I don't know. You're in a busy street area. All these uncomfortable spaces.
Everything we do is uncomfortable.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. Yep. You're going to lead by example by having a podcast in these uncomfortable spaces. Now, what made you say, Jess, I have to go for this?
You know what? Because it is, I feel like in many ways in my current job that I was constantly in a state of conflict that I had to navigate, that it wasn't me that was in the conflict, but like I said, if you think about the trauma issues and things that I was going through last year and having to sort through that, navigate that, it just was a recurring theme, constantly needing to have difficult conversations, constantly having to lead mediation. It was just conflict daily, all the time. Like I couldn't even count how many times I had to have a difficult conversation in one day. And that was just my life. And I was like, you know what? I can stay in this job, and I've seen, amazing changes happen in my school, in my building, with my students and my staff. But I really just saw the need for more training with conflict. And I started to really recognize that, all the things that I was applying at work to sort through this stuff, I was applying it to my own life. And I was starting to recognize that people struggle with conflict everywhere. Nobody likes conflict. And I was like, if there were anybody that could come along and hold my hand and walk me through how do I do conflict in a good way, in a kind and loving way, and still be honest and still be truthful, then please help me. So that's where I thought, okay, you know what? That person is not coming. I will be that person, and I'll figure it out, and I will try my best to help people through conflict because, gosh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere all the time. And, how do we get through it in a good way? Most people, we struggle. I struggled before this job, and I'm not going to say it's easy now and it's not fun, but I feel so much more confident navigating that now. And I want people to feel the same way too. I want other people to say, hey, there's an issue here and it needs to be addressed. Let's address it. Let's, not avoid it or be confrontational about it. Like, how do we just do this in a good way? And there's a way to do it. And that's what I want to do.
Today, I'm going to share something, Jess, that I haven't shared on this show before, but it really fires me up. And I'm sharing it because we're on the fire segment, and I want to share this with the audience. More often than not, leaders spend their time complaining about the fires they put out, complaining about the conflicts they have to deal with, complaining about the difficult conversations. And the problem with that is if they were proactive in their approach, they wouldn't have as many fires to put out. They wouldn't have as many difficult conversations that need to be had. And what you're doing right now, I really admire, because you're recognizing that this is an issue and you're taking charge of that opportunity to go out and say, people need to kind of wake up here and recognize how to be proactive in these situations so we don't have to have as many conflicts. We don't have to have as many difficult conversations. Now, I'm an advocate for conflict. I think that it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn. It means you're pushing each other's limits and setting high expectations. However, there is also bad conflict, right? And when those bad conflicts arise, it usually stems from a lack of communication. It usually stems from people not knowing the expectation. So, Jess, I am so excited to see where you take this. I'm so excited to see where you go with it. I know the person you are and the energy that you're going to bring to it is going to be something that I'll want to take part in. I'll want to hear out. I know that we have a bunch of people that we know that would want to hear this out as well. And I wish you nothing but the best in that journey. And the best part about wanting to get into things like speaking and podcasting and starting a show is you're creating a community, right? And you're creating a community of support, not just in the message you're sending, but for you as well. And you're going to feed off of what your audience likes and what they want to hear. And you'll learn that it's not always the things that we think we need to share. Sometimes they need us to share other things with them as well. And so I just wish you good luck on that journey as well, Jess. And that actually brings me up to a question here, which, if people want to get in touch with you and address and collect some more information on what your goal is with this, how can they reach out to you?
Well, I'm okay. I'm an introvert in an extrovert's job, and I get that. So I am somebody who, as long as I have groceries, I could go to the bush for 12 days and not talk to a soul. And the reason I say that is because, I've been slowly recognizing that I need to build up my social media profile, because I normally can just like turn it all off and have nothing to do with anybody. And that's like really nice for me. And not that I don't love people. I do love people, but I find that I give a lot of energy. And so I need to have a sanctuary, which is home with no internet. Just kidding. But now I have a Facebook. So it's Jessica Iron on Facebook. And I have an Instagram, and I will connect you to that. I was just working on it tonight. And so I will definitely.
Good for you. Check the show notes when it's finalized here is what we'll say.
Yeah. Okay. And
right?
So, yeah, I'm building all of that up slowly but surely.
Good. And right after we're done recording, the first thing we're going to do is get you a Gmail account in something here so that people can email you, because they should not apparently book meetings with you. No, they can definitely book meetings with you too. Now, Jess, bold decisions, especially like the one you're taking, can be very intimidating. Yeah. And so for people listening, what advice would you give them to help them make that bold decision for themselves? Not saying to tell people to quit all of their jobs, but when they're debating a decision, what advice do you have and how to come to a resolution on it?
For me, all of my decisions I make with Creator. I'm very much, somebody who loves to meditate and go that route. I seek a lot of guidance spiritually so that I feel comfortable with my decision. But that being said, that's not true for everybody. I think once you know your truth, And that's something that I'll talk about even on my podcast, finding your truth through meditation and that sort of thing. Once you know what it is that you want to do, then you need to just do it. Just like that quote that I shared with you earlier, you don't have a lot of time. We don't have time. And, I think of all the time in my life that I wasted just really not knowing my truth, not knowing what it was that I wanted to do. And now I feel a sense of urgency more than ever. And so I think once you really connect with your truth, then you just got to start putting, one foot in front of the other, taking risks, taking action. That's what life is all about.
And at the end of the day, pick one, right? Pick one that feels like it's calling to you, and you'll find ways to make it work. And if you get halfway down that road and it's not working, it's not like the road behind you has come apart. You can come back down. You can travel another path. There's always a path to go down. There's always a new way. There's always a new opportunity. Now, Jess, I don't have any segments prepared or a clip to play for this next one, but this is a listener's question section. And so usually the day before interviews, I just put a post on my social media saying, hey, everybody, I have an interview coming up in the next 24 hours. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, send them my way and I'll make sure to bring them up in the show. And we'll see what the guest and I can come up with for an answer to this person's question. So let me just pull it up here. I'm going to go to my Instagram stories quick and see if I can find my questions today. I've got one for us today, and it just says, hey, Tyler, I'm just struggling with a conflict between me and another colleague right now. We're both just peers, but what should I be doing to try to resolve it?
Ooh, this is like made for me.
It is.
You know what I say always? Maybe you need to have that difficult conversation. And, whatever the conflict is, go in with a questioning mind. Don't go in with assumptions, because when you have assumptions, that's when you're going to get angry and heated and you're not going to hear the other person. So just go in with questions, and whatever the conflict is that is bothering this person, you can just say, hey, I noticed this, and you can, talk about whatever it is that you observed and say, hey, can you just talk to me about that? Help me to understand what you were thinking or what was going on, and just let them start talking. And then sometimes what you're going to find is that you're really upset about something because you've built up a story in your head. And when you hear the other person out, you'll go, oh, wait a minute, maybe this isn't a conflict after all. So just go in with a questioning mind.
And I agree with that. I would not go in and say, Jess, why do you hate me? I think that kind of question is just triggering a whole level of, you've probably built up a story, they've probably built up a story. There's no need to have that conversation. But to approach it with, Jess, we're both here for kids, or we're both here to do the best we can. And I'm trying to see your perspective, but I'm struggling on it. Can you walk me through what's going on? And then you open the floor for them to share. Right. And at the end of it, you kind of have two responses you can go with. You're either going to see that perspective and go, thank you for sharing. I didn't see it that way before. I really appreciate the time that you took to walk me through it. Or you're still going to walk away going, that's not for me, but I appreciate that you have a why behind what you're doing. Right. Not every conflict needs to end in a screaming match, a shouting match, a who can get down to the hall the fastest to complain to somebody else. Right. So keep that in mind as too. Jess, you hit it spot on there. Have that conversation. It starts with seeking to understand. It starts with trying to get some clarity behind it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And, listener, I hope that we were able to address that for you. I'll clip it. I'll send it to you before the show comes out, just so that you can hear that answer right away here. And then everybody else has to wait until the show comes out. But I guess they're hearing it now. Man, this is like a fourth, fifth wall dimension I'm breaking. Alchemists, as we wrap up our episode, I want to take a moment and share my appreciation for your listenership. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason that I'm inspired to run the show. And I hope that the journey that Jess and I went on today sparked some points of interest for you. To dive deeper, make sure again that you're subscribing to our monthly newsletter for scholarly insights, actionable strategies, and an in-depth analysis of each episode. You can just reach out to the Instagram DMs for the link to sign up for that newsletter. And Jess, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to connect, collaborate, and empower us all through your lived experiences.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It's been wonderful. You're a great host, and I'm learning a lot from you, and I appreciate it. And hi, alchemists, bye, alchemists. It's been wonderful also sharing this space with you.
You've been listening to the Elemental Educator. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Elemental Educator.